Amnesia is a series that has been defined by its Twitch streamer and YouTube reactions. Okay, I'm half joking here, but the series really has a lot of ups and downs. When Frictional Games started, they made a few really interesting horror games that had unique gameplay. I likely won't cover those earlier games as Mandalore Gaming beat me to them. Seriously though, you should check out his channel, it's far better than this one and way more professional. Anyways, Amnesia always has something in common across all the games, but I can't quite remember what it is. You play as Henry Clement. I'm probably butchering that name. A French meatbag in the First World War designed to die horribly. You start the game in the middle of a charge against German lines. The trench raid serves as the tutorial where you learn how to throw objects, shoot guns, bandage yourself, and if you're like me, die a couple times because you're stupid. Oh yeah, well, you inhale a lethal amount of mustard gas, but you meet your best friend, or likely the only one left alive, Lambert. So, I guess maybe you have ungodly survivability. We hear about some gambling and betting for who is going on patrol in a brief intermission, and assuming we lost the bet, we are on patrol in the middle of no man's land.
Fate's a bastard. I'm on patrol tonight, then. C'est la vie.
I'm French! Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you silly king?
Looks like our friend Lambert got confused and fell in a hole. So we jumped down and helped the homie out before getting sniped by a tank shell from a Dorito-snorting vehicle camper. Somehow, despite taking a 57mm shell to the legs, being unharmed and you only suffer a minor case of amnesia. When you wake up, the whole bunker seems to be devoid of life. I mean, you'd think that someone would be around in the medical— oh shit. Honestly though, still better than most German trenches. Something has clearly happened since you fell unconscious, but despite some noises, it just seems like another day in World War I. It's not long before you find a survivor. He's terrified and trying to hold something back. He tells you that his time is up and that he would rather die to a bullet than get eaten, which I can relate to. So we take his pistol and run. Into the safe room, lock the door, and that's your intro to the game. So let's talk graphics. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This game looks like something that would have come out back in 2010. While some textures and models look fine to good, there are noticeably many that don't, especially in light. Not to say that the game is ugly, I mean, you're in a World War I bunker after all, I don't know what you expected, but there are areas of improvement. Thankfully though, the place where graphics matter, they do really well. The lighting in this game is next to perfect, probably just behind something like Deep Rock Galactic. In a horror game, it should be dark. Darkness isn't just some filter or mode where everything is significantly harder to see. Darkness for anyone who has walked into a room without any windows when the power is out is black. The game more than delivers. Obviously, compression and other factors won't show it perfectly, but just know that the footage that you are seeing is the brightness turned up without ruining the dark and altered in editing. This does wonders, and a significant part of the gameplay revolves around the darkness, and having it be this much of a hindrance can really help in making the player feel vulnerable. And speaking of vulnerable, this game has some of the best ambience that I've had the pleasure of listening to in a long while. It does such a great job of making the player twitch at each sound. Several noises in the distance could be generated by a threat, but others are only audible enough that they could be the threat itself. More than anything, it will provide useful information to the player throughout the game. Rats hissing when you get too close, footsteps and other noises from the location and activities of the monster, and how much noise you are making to attract the monster. It all works really nicely together, and I really struggle to find a weak link with the sound design. While there isn't much music, the few tracks that are present are reminiscent of something that makes you feel comforted, yet still knowing that I am not yet out of danger. Kind of reminds me of something familiar. Oh well, I guess I have amnesia. For people who have played an Amnesia game before, you will feel right at home. From being able to manipulate objects and open doors with the movement of your mouse or gamepad, to using that environment to your advantage. While the monster in this game might be invulnerable, you have a lot of tools at your disposal to deal with it. The game uses a sort of cat and mouse system, where you will fuel a generator with fuel that you find throughout the bunker. If the fuel runs out, you'll be left in the dark with the monster, who, much like myself, crawls out of whatever deep dark hole it's in and goes on the prowl for your chicken tendies. Having light doesn't mean the monster won't come out to say hi, it just means that he won't be patrolling the grounds at all times like a hall monitor. However, the generator doesn't light all areas, and at first you'll be tasked with turning on the switches for those areas manually. Some are in more pleasing areas than others. If the monster is in pursuit of you, there's always the hiding option, the Molotov cocktail option, the run away like a bitch option, and the American option. Plus, there are things in the environment and distractions that you can use, so there really are a good number of options. That freedom of choice extends to how you navigate the bunker itself. Several doors can be bashed open or shot with a shotgun, or if you're like me, I like to use what I call the monster master key. Finally, the game uses a sort of randomizer, which means that no two playthroughs should be the same. Codes and items will be swapped around, and even the codes themselves will be changed, so technically any code you see throughout this video isn't going to give you an advantage. Even dead bodies where rats hang out to block your path are randomized. Still better than the German trenches. There are settings for all these things and more later that allow you to really mix up the game, but I'll get to those later. Of course, I can't help but talk about the star of the show, the monster. Amnesia has usually had good habits of not showing the monster as much as possible. You may only get a glimpse of it as you desperately hide away. My first encounter with the monster was awesome. I knew it was in the room with me, but it was way too dark because I forgot to turn on the generator. So I took a blind shot, only to miss and be killed soon after. When the monster is close, lights will flicker and turn off so you know you are in trouble. But the lighting being dark helps to mask the monster even when the other lights are on. It will slowly stalk you, and you can only catch parts of it as the lights flicker on and off. It looks fantastic. It gets summoned most commonly by a sound, so any shot or grenade you use is likely to draw its attention even in lit areas. But throwing objects or tripping over debris also has a chance of alerting it to your location. It will often kill you in one hit, and using the same strategy won't always work. Eventually, it does learn that bullets can't kill it, so it stops retreating. So trying to stay hidden and use weapons as a last resort is the best course of action. I want to talk about more things involving the gameplay, but to do so I feel ruins the fun of discovering these things for yourself. So I'll place a light spoiler warning here. If you want to skip to the conclusion or the story rundown first, skip to these timestamps. Okay, so to be honest, the AI isn't actually that great. For anyone who has played Alien Isolation, you know that when designing the alien, they made it extremely smart. allowing it to learn from mistakes, common hiding places, recognize sounds, and hunt down the player more efficiently because of a lot of reasons that I won't get into. It worked, and it worked really well. It meant that players always felt on their toes because the alien could adapt and become more dangerous at the same time the player was also getting more tools to use. Amnesia doesn't have this level of AI, but they do hide it well. The various functions I mentioned before still apply, and keep the player from experimenting too much, but any attempt to break the AI and anyone will be able to see how thin it is. I don't want it to sound like the game becomes unscary at all times after you learn this. In my first playthrough, I thought the safe room was completely safe at this point, but then I found a monster hole that wasn't there before. Could the monster come through it into the safe room? I don't know. I just barricaded it and hoped for the best. Things like that can happen throughout the game to keep you on your toes and maintain tension. The AI still doesn't get smarter, but it has a good way of hiding it. And before you ask, here's the proof that the hole wasn't there before. So, I assume it did make it. When hiding, unless you make noises, the monster cannot find you. I have several clips of this. There's a random chance that it will smash the table you're hiding under, but not because it's getting smarter. This is unfortunate because by the last third of the game, I had really figured this out, and then the game became far less scary. It's worth noting that the game will typically be about a 6-hour experience, so it is at least a short time. I can't fully blame the devs for this, but maybe moving up from the engine that was made back in the days of Halo 3 might help. Damn, saying that out loud just made me feel really old. The only other thing worth mentioning here is with the rats, but they are as basic as they come. Throw some meat, a flare, a grenade, or use fire and they will go away. They can attack, but in my experience, unless you are bleeding a lot and have the menu not pause the game, they really aren't that much of a threat. More of a roadblock. Though I did get a strange bug where they attacked me while I was reading a note, which they aren't supposed to do because I had that setting on. Now the story. Well, after you get to the safe room, all you need and want to do is escape. Unfortunately for us, the superior officers didn't send out a memo and just blew the whole exit shut. We have to get dynamite and the ignition switch to blow it back open. Easy, right? Okay, so maybe there are some roadblocks to getting those two items. Nevertheless, we push on. As we explore more, we find notes that detail stories of the men who were unfortunate enough to be trapped down here with the beast. I mean, it was either try your luck with something that doesn't like light and noise, or go back out into the trenches of World War I. So, maybe it was a better option. We learn from the notes left behind by your friend Lambert and yourself, cause, you know, we forgot. Anyways, during the game, we learned that it was Lambert who actually lost the game and had to go on patrol that night, hence why he was in the hole. We learned that we actually cheated at the game, yet upon Lambert's disappearance, feel guilty enough to go out searching for him. When we were knocked out for a while, a lot happened. Lambert was the one who managed to somehow drag us back to the bunker and stayed with us day after day while we recovered. In that time, some of the men accidentally found some tunnels that connected to the bunker. There were mysterious markings and writings that only one man could translate. The leadership noticed that the tunnels moved in the direction of the German line, so they thought it best to continue excavating in order to flank the enemy. As they kept digging, the man who was translating the text learned that the supposedly Roman tunnels weren't actually Roman at all. They were basically an amalgamation of several cultures formed into a cult that basically worshipped their god of furries, BDSM, and Morbius. They engaged in blood orgies, sacrifices, all the good stuff. Despite him warning the others about the potential dangers of digging further, the ancestors to Bobby Kotick marched forward blindly. Men start getting really scared when they hear howling coming from the tunnels, and soon, one by one, the men start disappearing. They turn on their leaders and try to blow a hole to block the tunnels, with no success. Men can hear screaming at night and something moving around in the walls. Then the first sighting is confirmed, and the few venture into the tunnels once again to face the beast. One manages to scare it off with a gunshot, but as he goes to bed one night, the men find nothing but blood. Little by little, the men either go crazy, die, or both. Reading through these notes gives you hints to where items are and who had what last. Keys will be on bodies, and one man tried to escape via the pillbox. It seems promising enough. As you climb your way up to the top, you finally see sunshine for the first time in what feels like forever. But you're reminded quickly that there's a war going on. Guess that plan didn't work so well after all. Back to plan A. Oh boy. Apparently the guy who was translating all the texts and warning people was thrown in jail with some others. You can even find him there alive. I needed the bolt cutters in his cell, so it seemed like a good idea to free him and get the both of us out of here. Oh, sorry about that. One of the key items was left inside the chapel for me, so I went straight there to go collect it. Did I mention that some of the soldiers were going a little insane? One soldier in particular went a little too far when he made a permanent residence in the tunnels and cut out his own eyes. He seems rather friendly. The tunnels are one of the highlights for me in the game. The area is creepy, filled with strange rocks, and things you can't understand. On top of all of the notes in the game having built up to make it this place that seems genuinely terrifying. You don't know what to expect. I was not prepared for what I might find in there. As you walk around, you might hear footsteps of someone. And every now and then, I swear I am catching glimpses of a ghostly figure walking around, stalking me. Oh shit, did you see it? Anyways, we grab the detonation switch, but before we leave, if you explore a little more, there are some bricks that we can move, and we crawl through them to the other side. At first, it seems like a possible alternate exit, but like the pillbox before, the sunlight is just out of reach. If you look around the pools of strange glowing liquid, you can find a stuffed toy and the tags of our friend Lambert. Yes, this is the hole we found him in. Throughout the game, we can find a few scattered letters from him. He remarks on his time in the hole, wondering if he would die, clutching to the toy that he wanted to bring back to his son. When you rescued him, you unknowingly gave him some water of one of those strange pools. He mentioned that it tasted funny, but not much else. Even he was surprised that he gained the strength to carry you back to base after flexing off a mortar shell. The doctors mentioned that he had a lot of adrenaline in him, but that he surprisingly didn't have any major injuries. He is sad that he forgot to grab the toy back at the hole, but glad that he was able to make it out at all, especially with his friend. That is his last letter, however, and we don't find a body, only the toy and the tag. Could that mean... no. Several men have struggled to describe the monster. For the few that have seen it, I can't say I blame them, but a common sight for all of them, including the player if they manage to survive an encounter, is that the monster seems to have a face. If you look closely too, you might even notice that it seems to have shredded pieces of clothing on it, along with its shredded skin, as if something burst out from something or someone. The clothing kind of resembles a tattered uniform of the French army. Oh no. Lambert is the monster. This whole time, and with the mystery of the tunnels, it was assumed that the monster came from the tunnels or was a creature from another dimension, and that the cultists summoned him somehow. But no, it was your friend the whole time.
This ghost really doesn't need any introduction. As soon as we clean him up, I'm sure you'll recognize him. There. Look familiar?
My friend Lambert.
Like in person.
Whatever liquid you gave him before, it must have transformed him, but it's rather unclear. After working your way through the bunker to find the tools needed for success, you finally make your way to the entrance to leave this little slice of hell. You try to blow up the door, but it doesn't work. Instead, it blows out a hole underneath you that leads to more caves. Still, there's no way out but through, so it's time to jump down. Moving through the darkness of the excavation site, a faint flicker of light and what sounds like it could be a lot of electricity can be heard in the distance. We enter into this large room with strange structures and fog so thick you can't see the bottom. I was curious and jumped down only to get the scene. Which does confirm this is a portal room of some sort. Whatever that cult in the past was trying to access and do, they did it. And they opened the door to whatever was on the other side. Perhaps this is where the darkness from the other Amnesia games started. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to look around, and Lambert crawls out from the darkness to say one last goodbye. This part isn't hard. I'm just an idiot, so it took me forever to figure it out. You can either distract Lambert with a doll and stack some boxes to escape, or kill him by causing him to fall into the portal below. Still, I wonder if there is still something inside of him that remembers who he is. Screw it. Finally you can get out. Finally you can escape. Finally that sunlight doesn't feel out of reach. Yet just like before, you are reminded that the world continues on around you, from one hell into another. I loved this game. It has problems, yes, but for me the good outweighs the bad, except there is one last thing I need to mention. Upon completion of the main game, you unlock New Game Plus and a few extra features. There's a training area reminiscent of Call of Duty 4's tutorial that serves as a far better tutorial of the mechanics of the game than the actual main game does, and several modifiers to the game. You can select a predetermined difficulty or create a custom one with whatever features you would like. There are new challenges, mechanics, and behaviors for the monster. So why is this unlocked after you already beat the game? I suppose it makes sense to add this after in order to make a second playthrough more appealing, but it still feels odd for me. That being said, I did play through the game 3 times, one on normal mode, one on the hardest mode, and one with a custom setup that added some of the new features. The hard one only felt more restrictive for the problems that I mentioned earlier about the AI and that the game gives you significantly fewer resources to use, and the custom one was my favorite. It added so much to the game that despite basically memorizing the layout of the game at this point, it took me longer to complete than the first 2 playthroughs. It felt fair and interesting, and I look forward to playing with another custom difficulty in the future. Overall, I would say that Amnesia the Bunker is worth your time. If you are a fan of horror, this is one of the good ones that I think those who play it will remember fondly. It plays well, and I never experienced anything game-breaking in all my time with it. It goes for $25 on both console and PC, and is even included in Game Pass. I would strongly recommend this game as it is a fun, intense, and immersive horror experience that doesn't overstay its welcome. Also, quick update for the 300 or so of you that actually check this channel out of pure curiosity, which is so cool to me, I'm not even going to lie. Thank you so much. But I know this video did take a lot longer to come out than I would have liked it to, and now that life is no longer getting in the way, I will try to make things come out a little bit more consistently and keep people updated and so on and so forth, as I do actually want to make a channel out of this. But yeah, thank you for sticking around, and hopefully you stick around a little bit more. The next 2 videos will take a little bit longer than I would like them to, but after that, hopefully things should be more consistent, and I will do my best to keep up with that and keep everyone up to date. So thank you so much. Next time, we'll check out a game I've been wanting to play for a long time. Thanks for watching.